Okay, so this is just a simple, quick voice memo for chapter 7.3, talking about the structure of predicate logic in natural language. And what I see going on here is that this is a chapter that's taking place after the text has already introduced predicate logic and is now pivoting towards focusing on the inputs of that logical system, namely variable. So instead of object, now we're sort of evolving into a system where the inputs or the domain of a predicate can range over variables. That is, variables have a specific position with regard to the predicate, and that's the content of the relation. So now we're no longer talking about denotations in objects, but we're just talking about like surjections over domains, over sets of objects that are, I guess, compatible, insertable. Their inputs. That's the bottom line. Then it talks about just using some of the formal notation to describe functions. That I understood. And then we get into, I think this was the main part of the chapter, which is it's talking about how predicate logic needs to still capture sentential logic, in the sense that when we are constructing combinations of predicates, those combinations need to come into a structure that is in alignment with sentential logic, as far as breaking up predicates in terms of structure and not just in terms of grammar, whatever it may be in the sentence in natural language. And we just learned a few things about the fact that when you're reading natural language, predicate logic applies to adjectives, verbs, and common nouns. Copula, that's like an is. That's a way of interpreting is, so that you can get back to the right type of predicate. That's mostly related to adjectives. And let's see, I think this last part about the uninterpreted nature of logic kind of gets back to this point that Dr. Varzi was making about metaphysical neutrality, which for me, and I'm sure other people, is kind of a difficult pill. I mean, just because it seems to kind of put logic at a disadvantage in terms of describing things. But it just means that we have to change. But after our discussion, it just means that we need to change the scope of our question. So I have this point here saying that the meaning of predicates should not be taken as evidence of logical arguments, meaning the content of the predicate doesn't have any bearing on its logic and of a broader argument or sentence. And so predicates must be uninterpreted for the laws of logic to be respected. This is congruent with the laws of sentential, and this is what allows it to be congruent with the laws of sentential logic. So if you were to allow predicates to alter the underlying definitions of sentences, then that would conflict with sentential logic, because it would no longer be an uninterpreted language. So that makes sense. That'll call it the end of the memo.